And though Portugal isn't going to become a powerhouse necessarily in the exploration field, they will field a number of sailors that will help other countries, and kind of like mercenary sailors. Now, talk about the first European explorer, Cristoforo Colon, or as you might know, Christopher Columbus. All right. If you remember back to your elementary, middle school days, Christopher Columbus is Italian, but the king of Italy will not fund his explorations. So he goes to Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain. And they're somewhat in a precarious situation because they don't have as much of a dominant role in Asia as England or France or even Portugal in this case, or the Dutch. And so they go ahead, kind of from Christopher Columbus's swaying of Queen Isabella, they go ahead and fund his explorations. They give him 3 ships to sail westward, as we know. And again, it's not that he thought the world was flat. He just thought by going west, he would actually get to Asia quicker. And so sailing west, for so many weeks, they run into what he would later on term San Salvador, or as we know it, Hispaniola, Cuba, in the Bahamas. All right. As the native Arawak Indians come up to the boat on his first arrival, he thinks he's in the Indies. All right, he's in the Indian Ocean. He's in the Indies, and he names these natives the Indians. Obviously, that's where we get that term from. All right, but in his 4 journeys, he takes back a number of gold items. He takes back Native Americans as slaves, so to speak, and also as exhibits to show off. He takes back different foods and animals and different things that he finds. And he keeps this big detailed journal, which we'll look at a little bit tomorrow in class. But what this is going to eventually result in is it's going to spike the curiosity of Spain, but it's also going to spike the notion of gold. All right, even though there's not much gold there at the time, it's going to pique the interest of the king and queen of Spain, and they're going to fund the colonization and of North America, or the Americas, excuse me. Okay. The first conquest, so to speak, is from a gentleman named Fernando Cortez. Okay, Cortez is looking for that lost city of gold, and he comes through Mexico and Latin America. Kind of goes actually up through Latin America into Mexico, and he meets Montezuma. Okay, the second. At first, Montezuma's men push back and defeat Cortez, and then Cortez simply gives them a nice Christmas treat. It just happens to be a bunch of blankets covered with smallpox. Montezuma and his men obviously don't know what smallpox are, but they go and take the blankets, and eventually everybody ends up getting sick and weakens Montezuma's forces and allows Cortez to come in and defeat them. All right, and actually here are some primary sources. These were drawn by a number of Cortez's men who traveled with him and kept journals of their adventures. Right. As you see, they would burn the natives once they took over. Another famous conquistador, as they were called, conquerors, was Francisco Pizarro. All right, again, still searching for that lost city of gold. This time in Peru, they come across another native group called the Incas. All right, and I'm going to butcher this, but Atahualpa. In a very similar situation, the natives do well because it's their own ground. They know how to defend it. They do well against Pizarro. Pizarro comes back with greater forces, greater technology, and biological warfare, smallpox. All right, and the same result occurs. Now, with the introduction of smallpox, as well as guns and horses and things like that, we get this exchanging of items. All right, and we're going to call this the Columbian Exchange. I'm sure this is not new to you, but just kind of different way of looking at it. We want to pose this question of why would the Columbian Exchange be considered the tsunami of unintentional bioterrorism? Okay, because in some ways it is. Yes, plants, animals, goods, things like that were traded between the New World and Old World, but also diseases, which are going to ravage the Native Americans. Again, the Arawak natives, which were the first natives to encounter the Columbus and the Spanish, they number around 1 million in 1492, and they say the statistics say within 10 years they're down to less than 100,000, and then within 20 to 25 years they're extinct. All right, so obviously, the exchange, maybe not always intentional, maybe sometimes it was intentional, would result of in a weakened immunities of the natives from diseases, common cold, so to speak, whatever, could end up wiping out a whole tribe. Right? But when we talk about the Columbian Exchange, again, something we'll talk about tomorrow, it's going to be the beginning of what we'll later on call triangular trade. Okay. When we talk about triangular trade, we're talking about the New World, all right, here, and this could be Central and South America, and later on it will develop into North America. We're talking about Europe, and then we're talking about Africa. All right, and what's going to happen is, all sorts of goods are going to be brought back to Europe from these conquistadors or explorers, and then those goods are then going to help develop other products, which will then be sold to Africa for slaves, and that will be brought back to the New World to do the work, farm and basically civilization. Now, when we talk about exploration and conquest and colonization, there's a cycle that goes into it. All right, and again, this is a very preliminary concept that will later on expand when we talk about the English colonies. All right, but what happens is you have the mother country. Let me just put it all up here for you. You have the mother country, in this case Spain. They're going to send explorers, whether it's Cortez or Columbus or Pizarro, whoever. They're going to send explorers through this new territory. Once there, what's going to happen is these explorers are going to turn into conquistadors, conquerors. They're going to conquer the land, the natives, whatever is in their way, right? And these conquistadors will help establish missionaries. Now, it could be an economic missionary, finding gold, or growing tobacco, which will later on become, or religious missionaries, spreading and converting Catholicism in the case of the Spanish. All right, these missionaries will then lead to permanent settlers established in cities and eventually whole colonies. And then with the permanent settlers, you have European colonies. All right. Now, the relationship between the mother country and the European colony is going to become one of exploitation. The mother country is solely using the colony to fund other exploits, whether it's war or other explorations, trade, whatever it might be. All right, and so goods, raw resources, raw materials will be brought back to the mother country, where they will then be used to produce finished products that will sometimes be brought back to the colonies to sell, or it'll be brought to Asia or Africa or wherever else to sell, make money. All right, so colonization definitely is a result of exploitation. All right, you see here just a little chart. The major years are 1576 to 1620. This is the growth, maybe even 1640, of gold and silver from Spanish America. Right. Now, one of the results of this